Well, hello and welcome to another reading vlog that will probably see the light of day way after the right season for its upload has passed. Anyway, I just finished recording a new video about studying Japanese, so I thought I might as well sit down and talk to you about some of the books I read this month. And by this month, I mean November. Just to be clear, we are starting with the beast that is Oathbringer. This is a thick boy. Now, I don't really have a lot to say about this book. I mean, again, Brandon Sanderson is just a great author, and I love the Stormlight Archive, and it's just an amazing series. Now, if I have to think about things that I didn't like about this book, because generally I just pretty much liked everything, I can say that I found the third part of the book kind of slow. I also couldn't tell how long they were in a specific city. I It's really hard to comment on the Stormlight Archive without spoiling stuff, which is another reason why I can't really talk about this series and so much. Also, I couldn't care less about a certain character's chapters. If you have read the Stormlight Archive, you can probably guess who I'm talking about. And if you need a hint, it's basically someone we all pretty much hate. There's also a certain female character that we get introduced to in this chapter. I couldn't say she is kind of key to the plot, but she's definitely key to the character development of a very important character. And all I have to say about her is that she is really dumb. And, well, she didn't deserve what came to her, but she was just so dumb. And I found her very annoying. Oh yes, and also, as a final thought, Shallan desperately needs therapy, and wit does not count. I am giving Oathbringer a 4 out of 5. Again, it just felt a little bit too slow at one point. I have marked a lot of stuff that I would love to read to you and quote and whatever, but again, that will be spoilers. So I can't really do that unless I do like a special Stormlight Archive video or something, but I am yet to read the fourth book, so I'd say there's plenty of time until a video like that happens. If anyone would even like to watch a video just about Stormlight, but anyway. Next up, we have Empire of Shadows. See, I stumbled on this book on Goodreads and I just saw the cover and I read the blurb. And immediately, I just thought I would love this, and I really wanted to read it. Because to be honest, these types of adventure books, not adventure books, but adventure plots, are kind of my guilty pleasure because I grew up watching Relic Hunters and The Mummy and The Lost World, and honestly, any type of story where you have like the strong independent woman who is stuck in the jungle and needs a man to help her. It's a guilty pleasure, okay? It is what it is. So my friend and I read this as part of our two-person book club and loved it. It's a very relaxing and chill read. It's an absolute cliche, okay? If you have watched Indiana Jones, if you have watched The Mummy, all that stuff, you know exactly what's going to happen pretty much. You're basically there because you know what you want and you're getting it. The writing is good. There were some repetitive elements that I kind of found annoying, but it wasn't too much. To be fair, I think the characters were the best thing about this book because they were very consistent and very true to themselves, and that's something I value very highly when it comes to the way characters are written. And I'm very excited to read the second book at some point, so this gets a solid 4 out of 5. Okay, now the next series, and I say series because it's the whole series, is not a very proud moment for me, okay? The Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I finished these in 3 days. Not my finest moment. They were all very fast reads, okay? Less than a day for each of them. They're very easy to read. The plot is quite simple, but it's interesting. And I would say the world itself is interesting. It's not just like a love story in a fantasy world where you mainly have the love story and then you just kind of have the fantasy world there. I'd say the fantasy world here is more well developed than I expected it to be. Now, I have to say, the plot was rather predictable, and as far as the writing style goes, it wasn't particularly good, but it also wasn't like particularly bad. So it's not like I can really comment on it. It was just okay. Like, there was nothing that would make it stand out. It pretty much just did the job it was supposed to do. There was nothing that I found particularly annoying that would make me want to stop and take a break from reading the books, but there also wasn't something that would make me want to stop because I like it so much that I don't want it to end. Okay? It was just kind of, you just keep on reading because you want to know what's going to happen next. And that's it. Which is not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah? Oh, I probably should have told you what it's about. How do I describe this? Jesus. Okay, so the main character's love is getting married to her sister for some reason, all of a sudden. And she wants to stop the wedding. So she goes to like a being that's kind of like a god. They call them fates. And she makes a deal with him, and then shit hits the fan. What's interesting though is that while I was reading this, it really felt like I was actually reading a webtoon. And when I was imagining things, it was always like the webtoon panels, which is something I haven't experienced before when reading a book. But you know what's actually bad about these being such a fast read? Is that it's not really a satisfying read because it's so fast. At least for me. Or maybe it's just because the ending kind of sucked. But we'll get there. We'll get to the ending. Now, the thing about the main character is that she actually doesn't have a personality. Okay? She could be any random girl with pink hair, and the book would still work. There was definitely a huge drop in quality for the last book. There was too much illogical stuff happening just so there would be more plot. Okay, it really felt like a money grab. Also, a lot of things felt just like lazy writing. Why? There was one on, where was it? I'm going to read this to you because honestly, this was just pointless. This was just a waste of time. Why was this written? Why did I have to read it? It added absolutely nothing to the story and the world building. Okay, here we go. There were 4 major gardens on the Wolf Hall grounds: the sunken garden, the water garden, the flower garden, and the ancient garden. Tucked away within each of these gardens were the 4 minor gardens: the fairy garden, the moss garden, the secret garden, and the wishing garden. Who cares? Why was this necessary? It was like, was there a word count that the author had to meet and this was just kind of put there the way you write an essay for uni and you just dump stupid things in just to get to the word count? What's going on? I honestly think that this series should have ended with the second book, okay? Because this added pretty much nothing to the story. It was trying so hard to create a villain, but it failed miserably at creating a villain. Also, the whole series is written from the third person POV, which is great. I prefer third person. And I tend to always complain when it only follows one character because I think that when you're writing from the third person, that's when you get to explore more characters and more world building, and it opens so many doors to you. So, you should, if you're writing from a third person, you should write from the POVs of more characters. Now, the first 2 books of this series only follow the main girl, okay? And somehow it worked and I didn't find it annoying. And then all of a sudden, in the 3rd book, we start jumping between POVs. And at this point, it just felt unnecessary and it was just so odd. And so many questions and plot points were left unanswered. Why? Chapter 42 of the 3rd book is probably the worst chapter I have ever read in my life. And I'm not exaggerating. So I gave the 1st and the 2nd book 4 stars each. The third one absolutely gets a 2-star. I was even tempted to give it a 1-star, but at the end of the day, it wasn't as bad as what I would usually give a 1-star to. So the second one gets a 2-star, and overall, the whole series, I would say, gets a 3-star. I will see you later. Oh, I can see the dot even more now. Wow. I don't even know how that got there. You can probably see it too. There's like a little dot like right here. Can you see it? Yeah. That's from the camera. Not great. So November has been such a hectic month. I really wanted to upload more this month. I had a bunch of videos planned, but I always end up putting more on my plate than I can actually handle. And as you can see, I haven't uploaded anything this month. My birthday is in November. Our anniversary with my boyfriend is in November. So we had a couple of friends stay with us for a few days. Then I had another friend come over. My dad is set to come and visit at the end of this month. I am set to go and see off a friend who is moving to work in Japan. There's also a sponsored video I'm working on that takes longer than a normal video does, just because of the way the sponsorship process works. And I still have to study for the SQE, which is the Solicitor's Qualifying Examination in the UK, which I have to sit in January. So there's just been a lot of stuff going on, and when I'm overwhelmed, I just end up spending most of my time reading. And to be fair, that is exactly a type of break I need. And it's not just because I love reading, but it's because it's also away from a screen and my eyes get the break that I need. And it's a way for me to de-stress, and I've definitely noticed that I desperately need to de-stress because my eye has started twitching. I remember it did that, I'd say not last year, but the year before, and it kept on twitching for about 2 months, and that was purely because of stress. So I think I'm going back to that, and it's so annoying. So I've tried to lower my caffeine intake. That doesn't affect it. So right now I'm just trying to stay away from screens as much as possible, which is hard to do because video editing and studying require my laptop. But that basically explains why I've been reading so much in November, because I don't usually read so many books in 1 month. But desperate times. Although, to be fair, reading is not like a desperate measure. It's a great measure, but you get the point. So, the next book I finished reading this month is Divine Rivals. One of my book club friends recommended this as just like a very light and chill read, and it really is. It really is. So, the action takes place in a fantasy world, and our two main characters are journalists working for a newspaper, and they're rivals who are fighting for one spot as a columnist for that newspaper. And long story short, they end up having their own personal typewriters that are connected through magic. So they send each other letters, but they don't know they're sending them to each other. And their world is currently at war. There's some gods and stuff involved. So it's not just them, writing to each other. There is actual plot and world building and other stuff happening. But I just couldn't make myself care about the world. Quite often, the world building was just random lore dumps. I'd say the most exciting thing about the book was actually the war itself and the way it was described, and just the whole war dynamics and being on a battlefield. That was, I'd say, the most interesting thing about this book, at least for me. The writing style is quite nice. The characters I enjoyed, but honestly, it's just a love story. And I don't really feel like picking up the second book. It's not like this is a bad book, it's definitely not a bad book. It's more about it not really giving me more. I don't know, does that make sense to you? I just needed more. I needed to actually care about the world as well as the characters, but because of the way the plot developed towards the end, I pretty much got what I needed from the characters, and then I couldn't care enough to continue reading the book. I mean, the series. So Divine Rivals gets a 3 out of 5. And then I went to a very trusted author, Brandon Sanderson again. I read Dawnshard, which is the little novel between the third and the fourth of the Stormlight Archive. Honestly, this was such a refreshing read. Again, not a lot I can say without spoiling stuff, but the Lopen is absolutely one of my favorite characters. Amazing. And this was just, a very well developed side story that has, I assume, relevance to the actual plot of Stormlight. But yeah, the highlight of this was the Lopen and Chiri Chiri. Chiri Chiri was adorable, but it's the Lopen. Yeah, it's a 5 out of 5, honestly. I definitely think it was better than Edge Dancer. I think in Dawnshard we just had a lot more characters that kept the story on track, and everything in it just felt like there was a purpose for it to be in the book. So yeah, definitely better than Edge Dancer. But yeah, anyway, that was a quick little chatty update. I have no idea what I'm actually going to do with this video as a whole, because things have been so chaotic that I can't even remember what I have filmed and what I haven't filmed, and what I can use and what I can't use. So this video is going to be a complete experiment. Oh god, that dot is really annoying. I am so sorry if it annoys you as well. See that thing? I feel like if I keep pointing it out, it just gets worse, but I can't get a new camera, so just deal with it. I am currently reading Little Thieves, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna finish it by the end of this month. Which is honestly, I don't think it's that far off anymore. God, time flies so fast. But yeah, this is how much I have left. This is how much I have left of Little Thieves. I've just finished Little Thieves. So this is a retelling of The Goose Girl, which is something I actually haven't read. To quickly summarize the plot for you, the godparents of the main girl are Fortune and Death. Basically, she steals the identity of the princess she serves, and she goes on being both a princess and a thief who steals from the nobility. And to do that, she uses a magical necklace that changes her appearance to that of the princess. Well, technically not exactly the princess, but like an enhanced version of the princess. But that's just details. Now, of course, things go very wrong, and she gets cursed by another god. So essentially what the curse does is that it begins turning her body into gemstones, stone by stone, and she has 2 weeks to break the curse or she will die. And she's cursed that way because of her greed. She also has to escape a deranged fiancé and the detective who is chasing the thief. The prose is lovely, the characters are very well developed and consistent. It's a very fun and charming read. The only thing I didn't really enjoy about this book is the way you have just random German words, I think it's German, inserted into the storytelling. And by that, I don't mean like someone saying a sentence in German and because they're speaking a foreign language. I mean, you just have a sentence that's describing something and you have a random German word in there. And yes, there is a dictionary at the end of the book, but I just really don't like it when authors do this. Кажи Любов.
Нова книжка?
Не бо, прочетена книжка.
Да. Има ли 6 foot 5 големи shadow daddy в нея?
Не, няма Shadow Daddy в нея. Няма да ти харесва.
Иначе high fantasy много, нали?
Не high fantasy. Пак е romantasy, но няма Shadow Daddy и няма Spice.
Значи няма 6 foot gem wielding dudes.
Не, съжалявам. Има gems, но не са върху мъже.
Окей. Успех с визи.
Ай, Любов.
Лава.
Anyway, as I was saying, this is a stylistic choice that I read for the first time in Foul Days by Genoveva Dimova. And even though the words were actually in Bulgarian, which is my native language, I still felt like it just wasn't doing anything for the story itself and for the world building itself. I don't know, it just feels awkward to me when you have just like these random words inserted into stuff. Aside from that, I give it a 4 out of 5, and at some point I will read the second book. Now, here comes the question of what I'm going to read next. I was thinking of starting the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive, but my friend from the book club messaged me and she's almost done reading the first Mistborn, like the Mistborn trilogy. And you know, if you have read the last book of the trilogy, it's very emotionally intensive, and I have warned her that the last part of the book is going to break her. So because she knows that's going to happen, she's already preparing herself, and she wants to read something that's kind of, you know, a guilty pleasure book. So she's kind of pushing for us to read, I think it's when the moon hatched. I think it's that one. And to be fair, I have been eyeing it in the supermarket because the hardback in there is just £11. So I think we are going to read this next. Or what I'm going to do is that I will start the Stormlight tomorrow. And when she gets to like the really tough Mistborn bits, then I'm going to start reading the When the Moon Hatched with her. So I'll read both at the same time. That's the plan. I think that's what I'm going to do. Yes, okay. I am starting the Stormlight tomorrow. I am here to rant about When the Moon Hatched. From the first chapter, I was happy I didn't buy a physical book. First, and some might say that this is nitpicking, but the dictionary, glossary, whatever, goes at the end of a book, okay? Not at the beginning. I am not supposed to be reading 30 pages of a glossary before the book begins, okay? That's just not how it's done. And it's not just about aesthetics and, you know, making things more accessible or whatever. It's about the expectations you set from the get-go. I will be honest, I did not read those first 30 pages or so. There was no point. I was going to forget everything anyway, because there were so many names and stuff that I thought was just way too much and unnecessary and It shouldn't be in the beginning. It shouldn't be there. Second point, the first chapter of the book is literally just a lore dump with a stupid amount of names that there's just no way I'm going to remember. And yes, that is why you have a glossary, but it's just not how world building is done. The writing style is not consistent at all because you have these very flowery, pretentious sentences. Amazon. What was I saying? Yes, the writing style. So it's both pretentious, flowery, flat, and boring all at the same time. Hello, honey. Can I help you? Yes, honey. Hello. We are babysitting. These very flowery sentences are followed by one-liners of very modern speech. I see you, asshole. And the word fucking everywhere, which also gets replaced by bloody at random. At this point, my book club has a tendency of picking really, really trashy books and suffering together. And honestly, at this point, it is on purpose. There's no denying it. Full disclosure, I did not finish this book, okay? I couldn't. There's only so much I can take, okay? It's definitely the worst book I read this year. Here, okay? Listen. Just listen, okay? So close, I am struck with a smoky musk, pinched with the smell of freshly split stone. Honey, can you not? She's only 3 months old, or 3 or 4 months old, and, she's kind of destructive. That is not for you. Yes, honey, would you like to say hi? Come here, honey. Oh, here she is. Hey, hello. This is Princess Peaches. Yes, you are. Little Miss Princess Peaches. And you heard this name, right? And what kind of owner are you imagining? Because if you are imagining a tall, big British chef, then you are correct. Honestly, it's adorable. As I was saying, as I was quoting, so close, I am stuck with a smoky musk, pinched with the smell of freshly split stone, softened with notes of something buttery. What? Just put down the dictionary and stop trying to be something you're not. And I don't mean stop trying to be an author. That is not what I mean, okay? I mean stop trying to use a style that's obviously not a good fit for you, okay? Anyway, I am not a professional author. I'm not a professional editing, honestly. I don't want to be mean, and I'm not saying it to be mean. I might be a bit harsh with my critique, but I just find it very frustrating when I read a book like this because it doesn't feel genuine. Does that make sense? Does it make sense to you? It just feels like it was written to fit a certain market and certain tropes, and there is no real personality to it. Anyway, it's the whole waxing poetic that is honestly insufferable to me. Also, okay, I'm going to put a screenshot here of something that I find very, very, very tacky. How come we get all of these unnecessary descriptions of everything and nothing, but we can't get a description of a simple knife, and we are left with a picture of a knife that kind of looks like the definition of graphic design is my passion, or it looks like it was just taken out of Canva. No offense to Canva. I love you. Yeah? Okay. And just a final example of the issue I have with the writing style. I sink into my inner self, landing upon the crumbled obsidian shore of my immense frozen lake, struck by the eerie silence that always makes my skin pebble. I pinch a fist-sized stone I used to bind the offending memory around, then creep out onto the smooth, frosty expanse that soothes the bare soles of my feet. To recover from this book, I started Rhythm of War, which is book 4 of the Stormlight Archive. But I do have a feeling that it's going to take me a while to get through this one, simply because it's so plot heavy. And I feel like my brain is just tired and I need to read more light stuff. And I don't mean just generally light in the sense of their vibe, but light in the way they are written. And it's not so much about the writing style, it's about what is happening in the book and how it's presented. Also, let's be honest, it's really uncomfortable to carry this around because it's so big. I can't read this while I'm commuting, okay? I can't read this on the train because it's just so uncomfortable. It's like I'm carrying a brick with me. Not weight wise, but just size wise. I still don't get why publishers here keep doing these small formats, these small sizes of books. Can we just make it bigger? If we make it bigger, it would be less thick and it would be easier to carry around. That's my logic, at least. Anyway, I have an upcoming trip to Norfolk to go visit a friend, so I'm definitely gonna have to get something that's easier to carry around with me so I can read. But what that is, I don't know yet. But I am definitely done with the trashy TikTok romantasy for a while. Okay? I can't do it anymore. So, on the way to Norfolk, I ended up reading The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. On the way there, I realized that I was going to get through this very quickly and I needed another book. So, when I got to Norwich, I went to the bookshop and got Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. So, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which is a mouthful, was another book club read, but it was honestly a delight. And it was also quite fitting for my trip because the action takes place in Norfolk, which I honestly didn't know when I picked it up. And while I was reading it on the train on my way to Norwich, I read exactly the part where they were going to Norwich to a bookshop, which is exactly what I ended up doing. So that was kind of fun. To summarize the plot for you, it's about a witch who goes to the middle of nowhere in Norfolk to teach 3 little orphan girls. That's it, basically. It's very chill. Honestly, it filled me up with such positive feelings. And, the plot is predictable. There isn't that much happening, but it's very heartwarming. The side characters are really fun, and the romance is cute. The writing style is very light, and it makes the book very, very easy to read. I wouldn't say that there's anything particularly special about the book, but it's just so endearing, and it's really what I needed to read, and I give it a 4 out of 5. And finally, we are ending this video with Brandon Sanderson entering the romantasy chat with Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. And I said I wasn't going to read any more romantasy and that I was done with it and I had enough, but okay, this is not the typical TikTok romantasy, okay? This, I also wouldn't say it's romantasy, because yes, there's witches, and yes, it's fantasy, but because it's in the modern world and there isn't really that much fantasy in it, I can't really classify it as romantasy, and it also doesn't really follow your typical romantasy tropes that are popular right now. So this doesn't count. And this definitely doesn't count because at the end of the day, it is Brandon Sanderson. I just can't kind of put him in the same category as what you would normally label a romantasy. Okay? But this is him entering the romantasy chat. So I loved Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I think it could actually be one of my favorites in the Cosmere. Now, a quick disclaimer, you shouldn't really read it until you've read book 4 of the Stormlight Archive, but because I had already spoiled myself quite a lot, I just picked it up. So once again, we have Hoyt telling us a story, and it's the story about two people who supposedly live on different planets, and then something happens and they start swapping bodies. So they have to figure out why that's happening and how to navigate the other's world, and also how to fix some pretty big issues happening in their worlds, and then, of course, how to get back to normal. It's a love story that develops very gradually and naturally, I would say. It's quite believable. It takes place in two worlds that are so distinct from each other, with their own separate world building that is done quite well, surprisingly well, for such a short book. But again, it's Brandon Sanderson. He's nothing if not an amazing world builder and very, very concise in the way he writes. It's like when you read him, every sentence has a purpose and it serves that purpose, which is, I think, what really makes him stand out amongst other fantasy writers. Because generally, fantasy writers kind of have the tendency to go a little bit too much into unnecessary details for the world building. Whereas with Brandon Sanderson, it's like every detail matters, you know? Anyway, I love the world building, the humor, the love, and I find it really, really endearing that the book is dedicated to Brandon Sanderson's wife. 5 out of 5. I definitely read more than what's normal for me this past month. Although, admittedly, it is the 4th of December now, so it has been a little bit more than a month, as it might be evident by my very humble Christmas decorations. But the thing is that whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, I just immediately search for ways to escape. And let's just say that a lot of escaping happened this past month. Anyway, thank you for watching. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts about any of the books I've read. And if you have any recommendations, please share. I made a shelf on Goodreads with all the recommendations I've gotten from your comments so far. I am slowly making my way through it. The thing with these reading vlogs is that I really want to share with you what I'm reading in a more interesting way than just kind of sitting down and talking about books. But at the same time, I have a very, very boring life. And I'm a boring person as well. Okay? So I find it quite hard to just kind of pick up the camera and start talking about what I'm doing or what I will be doing today or tomorrow or just, during the week, because honestly, I don't really do that much. But I do also want to kind of learn more about how to, take more aesthetic shots and just kind of get better at what was what was the English word? Filmography? Is that the word? Cinematics? Yes? No? Anyway, I just want to get better at recording stuff in a pretty good way, So these videos are kind of that. They're more of an experiment. And even if not a lot of people watch these vlogs, I still want to do them because I feel like they're a really good practice for me because I don't come from a film background. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing and I'm basically just learning on the spot. I mean, I have watched like a bunch of videos about editing and filming. I have done plenty of research. I've taken courses and stuff online. But just hearing about those things, it's quite different than actually putting them into practice. So I want to put more stuff into practice, but that does also take time. And it's all just really confusing. So if all of my videos at this point seem very random, I'm just learning and I am really enjoying the process of learning. It is what it is. At the end of the day, this is a hobby that I really enjoy. I'm surprised how much I actually enjoy editing. Because for me, editing is the most fun. I didn't expect that. Because years ago, I would look at an editing program and I would see it and be like, what is this sorcery? And now it's fine. I mean, my edits are still pretty basic, but it's fun, it's interesting, it's learning a new skill. And I wish I had the time to do it more and learn more, but unfortunately, life is life, and time is the one thing we have a very limited amount of. I can't really dedicate as much time and energy to YouTube as I want. Maybe one day I will. Doubtful, but. But yeah, it's a hobby. It's a hobby that brings me pleasure. It's a hobby I needed. And if you're watching this, if you're watching the channel or just this video, genuinely, thank you. I wish I could add more value to your life, but apart from talking about books and studying and living abroad and Japan, honestly, there's not much I can offer you. But yeah, I will try to get better at making these, and we'll see where we go. This was just a random bit of rambling. I don't even have a proper light, like I'm using this right now. And just after I finished filming the actual book reviews, I realized that maybe it's better if I move the light here, but then I have to hold it in my hand, which is very impractical. Anyway, I will stop rambling. Thank you for watching. See you again in probably, optimistically, a month.